Welcome, dear traveler, and welcome back to our peaceful corner of history. To my cherished subscribers, thank you for returning tonight. And to all new visitors, I'm so glad you've joined us for this calming journey. Here, we wander softly through the echoes of the past, exploring ancient worlds in a gentle, sleep-inducing way. If you enjoy these peaceful travels, I invite you to subscribe and rest with us often. Tonight, we step into the shimmering heart of a civilization that endured for more than 1,000 years, a place where empires rose and fell outside its walls. Yet the city itself glowed like a lantern guiding the medieval world. We begin at the shores of the Bosporus, where Constantine the Great envisioned a new Rome. We walk through bustling markets, serene monasterios, golden palaces, and quiet harbor evenings. We witness the glory of Hagia Sophia, the brilliance of Justinian's age, the resilience of its people, and the soft twilight that embraced the empire as centuries turned. Settle in, breathe deeply, and let this story drift around you like a warm cloak. When the spoken tale ends, soothing music will begin, gently guiding you toward rest and peaceful sleep. Now, let us wander into the long and luminous story of the Byzantine Empire. The founding of New Rome. Settle in, dear traveler, and allow the soft lantern glow of history to guide you into a quieter world, far beyond the rush of our own time. Tonight, we journey back nearly 17 centuries to an age when empires trembled, borders shifted like sand, and the ancient world slowly transformed into the medieval dawn. And at the center of this great turning stood a single man, an emperor named Constantine, and the city he imagined into life. The city that would one day become the jewel of the East. A city of scholars and merchants, of saints and emperors. A city whose very stones would echo through 1,000 years. Let us wander there now, at the very moment its story begins. A vision on the Bosporus. It is the year 324 CE. The Roman Empire, stretched across continents, is weary from decades of civil war. Armies march, rival empires rise and fall, and the once unshakable peace of Rome is thinned into fragile whispers. Constantine, newly victorious over his rivals, seeks a place not just to rule but to renew the empire itself. And so, along the narrow strait known as the Bosporus, where the waters shimmer like sheets of polished silver, he finds it. Imagine standing beside him now. The air carries the mingling scents of salt water, pine, and distant hearth smoke drifting from scattered villages on the hillsides. Seabirds circle lazily overhead. Wooden fishing boats sway gently at their moorings. The land before him is humble, just a quiet town called Byzantium, known mostly to sailors and traders. Yet Constantine's gaze sees more. Where others would notice mere hills, he sees future palaces. Where others see a simple harbor, he sees a gateway to the world. Where others see a quiet village, he beholds the seed of a new empire. Here, he thinks, the old world may be reborn, a city between worlds. Byzantium's location is unlike any other. To the north and south, the waters of the Black Sea and the Aegean breathing slow rhythms. To the east lies Asia, full of ancient kingdoms. To the west, Europe, the heartland of Rome. Caravans from Persia, India, and Arabia pass near these shores. Ships from Egypt, Italy, and the far northern coasts all meet here. A city between worlds, Constantine whispers to those around him. A city that could unite the empire rather than divide it. A city that could watch over the trade routes like a sentinel of stone and marble. A city that might outlast Rome itself. He calls it Nova Romanu Rome. But the people will soon give it another name, Constantinople, the city of Constantine. The quiet beginning of a great work before the grandeur and triumph. Before the domes and palaces, the city begins in silence. Imagine dozens of surveyors walking the hillsides at dawn, their cloaks fluttering in the cool wind. They carry ropes, wooden rods, and wax tablets. They whisper measurements, mark boundaries, and drive small stakes into the earth. The birds are their only witnesses. Soon, the builders follow masons, carpenters, tile workers, laborers from every corner of the empire. Camps rise along the waterfronts. Fires crackle at night. The rhythmic tapping of chisels begins at first light. From these simple sounds soft, steady, almost meditative. The city awakens. Constantine himself walks the grounds often, not as a distant emperor issuing cold orders, but as a dreamer, inspecting the early outlines of his vision. He traces with his staff the path where the city walls will rise. He pauses at the high promontory where his palace will stand. He imagines gardens, colonnades, and spacious forums filled with life. Yet, as the workers gather around him, their boots scuffing the newly marked earth, he says nothing of glory or conquest. Instead, he speaks quietly of renewal, of a place where power and faith may share the same breath. The laying of the walls soon. The greatest feat begins. The building of the city walls. These walls will one day become legendary. The shield of the empire, standing firm against centuries of storms and sieges. But now, in these early days, they begin with the simplest of actions. Men clearing brush, leveling ground, and setting the foundation stones. Picture the scene under a soft morning sky. Teams of oxen pull massive blocks of limestone. Workers push carts laden with clay and brick. Supervisors trace lines in the sand to guide the rising towers. There is a strange calm to it all. Even though thousands labor together, there is more quiet determination than noise. The builders know they are shaping something meant to endure long after their own lives have ended. Historians will later write of these walls as if they were raised by divine hands. But here, in this moment, you see the truth. They are built by calloused palms, steady breaths, and the patient rhythm of human effort. Shaping the heart of the city as the walls reach upward, so does the city's heart. The first streets are carved across the hills like broad, steady paths. Markets begin to take form. A great forum has outlined a circle in the earth where senators will once again debate. A hippodrome, vast and curved, begins to emerge like the skeleton of a sleeping giant. Constantine orders columns brought from every corner of the Emperor Egyptian granite, Greek marble, stones from Asia Minor. He wishes the new city to feel not like a break from Rome, but its continuation. At night, torches flicker across the half-built streets. Workers gather around fires, sharing bread, wine, and stories from their homelands. They speak many languages, yet all share the same purpose. Above them, the stars reflect gently in the strait, as though blessing their work. A city of faith, one of Constantine's most profound visions, is for the city to become a center of Christian faith. Although he does not impose belief upon his people, he seeks harmony between old traditions and new. Small churches rise alongside ancient shrines. Priests walk quietly among builders, offering blessings for their safety. Pilgrims arrive, curious about the emperor's new capital. There is a sense not loud, but steady that this city is meant to be touched by both history and hope. The day of dedication, finally, after years of labor, the day arrives. It is the 11th of May, 330. The sun rises over the Bosporus, casting golden reflections across the water. The city stands proudly now, though much will still be built in the decades to come. Streets broaden out like arteries. Markets hum gently. The walls gleam in the morning light. Crowds gather along the maze, their voices murmuring like a distant sea. Flags hang from columns. Musicians play soft melodies. Priests carry incense that drifts into the clear air. Constantine appears, clad not in armor, but in ceremonial robes. He walks slowly, blessing the city, laying symbolic offerings at the key points. The palace, the forum, the harbor, the walls. At the hippodrome, he raises a hand in quiet triumph. I dedicate this city, he says, to God and to the Roman Empire, for ages to come. And as those words drift into the air, Constantinople is born. A seed of 1,000 years in this moment. No one can foresee what lies ahead. Not the golden age under Justinian. Not the centuries of siege and revival. Not the scholars who will preserve ancient wisdom. Not the emperors who will walk its marble halls. Not even its eventual fall still more than 1,000 years away. But this moment, these founding, is the quiet planting of a seed that will grow into one of history's most enduring civilizations. As evening settles over the newborn city, lanterns ignite along the harbor. Their golden reflections shimmer across the calm waters. Workers rest. Priests offer prayers. Families gathered on rooftops to watch the city's first night unfold. The wind carries the scent of the sea, the promise of trade, and the soft, steady heartbeat of a city that will live far longer than any dreamer who first envisioned it. In the darkness, the walls stand strong, the streets rest quietly, and Constantinople breathes for the very first time. Life in the imperial city approaches 1,300 words as our story continues. The newborn city of Constantinople has begun to settle into its own quiet rhythm. The walls stand steady. The harbors breathe with early comers, and new homes rise where empty hills once rolled gently toward the sea. Now, let us step into this living, breathing heart of the Eastern Roman Empire, as historians observing from afar, but as quiet wanderers strolling through its streets at dawn, listening, watching, and feeling the pulse of a city destined to outlast centuries. A city waking under soft morning light. The sun has barely risen over the shimmering bottom. A soft pink glow spreads across the rooftops, touching domes and colonnades with gentle warmth. This is the hour when Constantinople whispers rather than speaks. The fishermen are the first to move. Their wooden boats nudge away from the docks, gliding into calm waters with barely a splash. Nets unfurl like wings. Bronze weights glint in the soft light. The men murmur quietly among themselves, as though not wishing to disturb the stillness. From the hills above the harbor, smoke rises from clay chimneys. Families stir inside their homes' mothers, preparing morning bread. Children rubbing sleep from their eyes, and elderly grandparents stepping into small courtyards to breathe the cool air before the city fully awakens. In these early hours, Constantinople feels not like a grand imperial capital, but a peaceful village resting beneath the sky. Walking the Mese, the city's beating artery. Let us walk now along the Mese, the great central avenue that cuts through the city like a bright ribbon of life. At dawn, the Mese is quiet. Merchants begin opening their stalls, lifting wooden shutters, sweeping stone thresholds, arranging baskets of figs, jars of honey bolts of silk brought from far-off lands. The scent of warm bread drifts from nearby bakeries, mingling with the faint temps of sea air. A fruit seller hums softly to himself as he arranges pomegranates in neat, gleaming rows. A cloth merchant ties a canopy above his stall to shield his precious silks from the rising sun. A pair of scholars stroll side by side, discussing some ancient text they studied late into the previous night. The avenue is wider than most in Rome, itself with colonnades lining both sides. Archways led to side streets filled with workshops where artisans shape metal, carve wood, throw clay upon spinning wheels, and weave cloth in deep, rhythmic threads. As we walk farther, the city's hum begins to grow, gentle, steady, swelling like a tide. Scenes from daily life. A young girl pulls her mother along toward a fountain, where early risers gather to fill clay jugs with fresh water from underground cities. Nearby, an old man sits beneath a fig tree, his faithful dog resting at his feet, both watching the world unfold in unhurried comfort. In another square, a group of children chase each other around a marble statue left from the city's ancient Greek past. Their laughter rings lightly in the air, a melody carried on the breeze. Farther down, a scribe sits at a small table outside his shop, copying a manuscript with delicate, practiced strokes. His quill glides softly across parchment, leaving trails of dark ink that shimmer briefly before drying. Everything here is alive but peaceful, grand, but human. Constantinople breathes deeply, not in haste, but with the calm rhythm of a city confident in its place between two worlds. The markets of the capital now. Let us step into one of the city's bustling yet strangely serene markets, the Forum of Constantine. Be mid-morning. The plaza has filled with traders from every corner of the empire. Listen. The murmur of voices blends with the clinking of coins. The flutter of fabrics joins the tap-tap of shoemakers at work. The gentle bells, worn by camels from caravans far to the east, chime softly as they pass through the city gates. Merchants call out their goods not loudly, but with confident warmth. Fine oils from Antioch, spices of Arabia, cardamom, cinnamon, pepper, silk from Syrica. See how it catches the light? The smells intertwined into a tapestry of aroma. Fresh bread, sweet dates, warm resin, and incense drifting from nearby chapels. Even the noise here feels rhythmic, like a song the city has sung every day since its birth. A walk to the harbors. Let us wander now toward the Golden Horn, the great harbor that curves into the city like a protective arm of water. Ships of all sizes sway gently at their moorings. Greek triremes, Egyptian grain ships, merchant vessels from the Black Sea kingdoms. Every one of them carries stories of distant storms, desert caravans, and old roads that stretch beyond the horizon. Dockworkers move steadily, unloading amphorae filled with wine and oil. They speak softly as they work, taking pride in the essential rhythm of their labor. Nearby, children watch the ships with wonder, imagining foreign lands they'll likely never see, pulling dreams from waves as if gathering shells. The light dances on the water's surface. Gulls drift in slow circles, and the harbor breathes in a quiet harmony of motion. Inside the Imperial Palace district, far above the harbors, on the ancient Acropolis overlooking both sea and city, the great palace of Constantinople stretches across terraces like a sunlit maze of marble and mosaic. We walk, carefully and quietly, through its outer courts. Servants move in purposeful silence. Guards, in shining armor, stand beneath archways, their spears catching the afternoon light. Courtiers speak in hushed tones as they pass beneath porticos decorated with intricate golden patterns. Inside, the palace glows with subtle grandeur. Mosaic floors depict scenes of myth and empire. Curtains of fine silk sway with gentle drafts. Rooms open onto courtyards filled with fountains, their water trickling in soothing arcs. This is not a palace of loud decadence, but one of elegance and dignity. It mirrors the empire itself. Ancient, yet renewing, Roman, yet transformed. The Hippodrome, heart of passion. Now quiet to the west of the palace lies the Hippodrome, where tens of thousands gather on race days. But today is quiet. Let us step inside. The vast arena looms around us like a sleeping giant. Empty seats curve upward in sweeping tiers. The spina, the central barrier adorned with obelisks and statues, casts long shadows across the sand. Hero rival, factions the blues and the green shout and cheer during the chariot races. Hero, emperors, appear before the people. Here, history has already begun to unfold in moments of triumph and tension. But now, there is only silence. A silence that feels sacred, as though the arena rests between heartbeats. The breeze passes gently through the arches, carrying distant sounds of the city. It is peaceful, dignified, ancient, even though barely built. Quiet corners of the city. A city is not only its grand avenues and palaces, it is the quiet places that reveal its soul. We wander down a narrow lane behind a series of workshops. Laundry hangs between tightly packed homes, swaying like banners in the wind. Cats coil themselves in patches of sun. A baker hums a tune as he shapes dough on a wooden board. An elderly woman sits by her doorway, weaving a basket with slow, steady patience. Not far away, a small chapel stands with its door open. A single candle glows inside, casting a warm pool of light across the floor. A monk tends to the flame, whispering a prayer for travelers, workers, and the emperor himself. These are the tiny threads that, woven together, form the living tapestry of Constantinople. Evening descends over New Rome as the sun dips toward the western walls. The city softens again. Shadows stretch across the forums. The scent of evening meals rises from kitchens. Merchants close their stalls, tying down canopies and locking their chests of goods. Lanterns flicker to life along the maze, casting pools of gold upon the stone. Fishermen return to the harbor, their nets heavy with the day's catch. The palace windows glow warm from within, like distant stars descending to the earth. From a rooftop, one can see the entire city settling into its nocturnal calm. The domes glimmer softly. The sea laps rhythmically at the shores. And the people of Constantinople, merchants, monks, mothers, children gather in homes, where stories, food, and laughter weave the final threads of the day. This is not merely a capital. It is a world unto itself. A city built on hopes, ancient and new, a crossroads of continents, a sanctuary of culture and faith. a place that will stand for more than a millennium. As night embraces the city, a soft breeze carries through its streets, whispering a truth that only time will fully reveal. Constantinople is alive, and its story has only just begun. The glory of Hagia Sophia. There are moments in history when human hands create something so extraordinary, so breathtaking in scale and beauty, that it becomes more than a building. It becomes a symbol, a prayer made of stone and light, a monument that whispers across centuries. In Constantinople, such a marble rises at the center of the city, Hagia Sophia, the Church of Holy Wisdom. Tonight, let us wander through its story, from its earliest foundations to its glowing presence during the reign of Justinian. Let us walk slowly, gently, through the sacred halls, listening to the echoes of those who built, prayed, dreamed, and lived in its shadow. Before the glory, an early sanctuary. Long before the great dome shimmered above the city, a more modest church stood upon the same ground. It was built during the reign of Constantine himself, a simple, humble structure. Though small, it held a profound purpose, to serve as a place of unity for the Christian faithful of the empire. But time and unrest took its toll. The original church was burned during a riot. A second version rose, only to share the same fate during the tumultuous days of the Nika riots. By then, a new emperor had ascended the throne, Justinian the First, a man of immense ambition and vision. He saw in the smoldering ruins, not destruction, but an opportunity to create something unprecedented. Justinian vowed to build a cathedral unlike anything the world had seen. Not a church, merely, but a beacon of divine presence on earth. A monument to the heavens. Let us drift back to that moment, when the emperor summons two brilliant architects, Anthemius of Trails, a mathematician whose mind danced with geometry, and Isidore of Miletus, a physicist fascinated by space and gravity. They are tasked with something almost impossible: to design a structure so vast, so daring, that its dome seems to float upon the air. Imagine them standing before the empty plot of land. The ruins still smolder. The air carries the scent of ash and damp stone. But already, in their minds, the grand plan takes shape. They sketch lines in the dust. They argue quietly, passionately, over angles and arcs. They envision walls that curve gracefully upward, arches that distribute weight like flowing water, and a dome so immense it seems to rest upon light itself. Justinian watches them, his cloak stirring in the breeze. He sees not ruble, but the beginning of a masterpiece, the builders of the great church. Within days, thousands of workers gather on the site. Masons, carpenters, brickmakers, stonecutters, engineers, and artisans of every craft. The hum of labor begins before sunrise. The clatter of stone echoes across the city. Men chant to keep rhythm as they haul marble blocks with ropes and pulleys. Yet even in the labor, there is serenity. The architects often pause to observe the light falling upon their work, studying how the sun touches the stones, how shadows curve across unfinished walls. Even the placement of a window becomes an act of careful meditation. Justinian frequently visits, walking among the builders with quiet determination. He is not merely an emperor watching a project. He is a man shaping a legacy of faith. Marbles from an empire to build Hagia Sophia. Materials are gathered from every corner of the empire, each stone a tribute, each color a whisper of a distant land. Pale green stone from Thessaly, purple-veined porphyry from Egypt, golden-hued marble from North Africa, white marble that glows like moonlight from the islands of the Aegean. Ships arrive at the harbor carrying enormous slabs of stone, which are hauled up the hills by teams of oxen. Workers cut and polish the marble until it shines like still water. Inside the rising cathedral, floors begin to shimmer with mosaics. Columns are lifted into placestool, slender, elegant. The scents of dust, incense, and fresh cut would mingle in the air. Every piece contributes to a vision beyond ordinary architecture. It becomes a symphony of stone, each material playing its part. The miracle of the dome at last, after years of planning and labor. The most daring challenge remains: the raising of the great dome. Let us imagine standing beneath the unfinished structure, looking up at the vast circle of sky framed by stone. The builders prepare enormous scaffolding layer upon layer of wooden platforms. Ropes, pulleys, and beams stretch across the interior like the ribs of a giant wooden beast. Slowly, carefully, the dome takes shape. Brick by brick, arranged in patterns that distribute weight like the petals of a flower. Mortar, mixed with a secret formula, so light it seems to defy gravity. Arches beneath arches, like waves supporting a crest. As the dome closes, workers celebrate softly, knowing they have witnessed something miraculous. When the last brick is set, a stillness falls. Birds circle outside. Workers stand in awe. Even the architects pause, breath held, before letting out small, relieved smiles. The dome gleams like a rising sun. For the first time, Hagia Sophia feels alive, light as divine presence. Now, let us enter the completed cathedral as it would have appeared on its first luminous morning. We step across polished marble floors. Columns rise like ancient trees, their surfaces reflecting soft shades of gold and green. High above, windows encircle the base of the dome, allowing light to spill downward in gentle beams. It is here that Hagia Sophia reveals its deepest secret. The dome does not seem to rest on stone at all. It seems to float, suspended by light itself. Sunlight pours through the windows, illuminating mosaics of angels whose wings glitter like feathers of gold. The soft glow reflects upon the floor, turning it into a shimmering sea of color. Incense drifts through the air. Priests in embroidered robes walk slowly, carrying candles that flicker like tiny stars. Chants echo through the space-deep resonant, coming rising upward as though carried by invisible currents. Standing everyone feels time soften. Stone becomes light. Light becomes prayer, and prayer becomes the breath of the building itself. Even in silence, Hagia Sophia speaks. Justinian's pride. When construction is finally complete, Justinian enters the cathedral in solemn procession. He walks beneath arches he commissioned, over floors polished by countless hands, and into the glowing center of the church where the dome opens above him like the vault of heaven. Moved, he raises his arms and whispers, "Solomon, I have surpassed thee." It is not a boast, but an expression of profound awe. He feels not like a conqueror, but a servant of something greater, an emperor humbled by the beauty his vision has brought to life. The people of Constantinople gather outside, cheering softly. Inside, choirs begin to sing hymns that rise like incense toward the dome. And so, with music and light, Hagia Sophia becomes not merely a building, but the heart of the empire, a sanctuary for the ages. For generations, the cathedral will serve as a place of coronation, a refuge in times of fear, a school for scholars, a symbol of endurance, and a masterpiece of the human spirit. Its walls will witness emperors and commoners alike. Its mosaics will glow in morning sun and lamplight. Even when shaken by earthquakes or damaged by time, it will rise and restored with loving hands. Hagia Sophia carries the memory of the empire within its stones. It whispers its story to anyone who walks its halls, a story of ambition, devotion, artistry, and resilience. And tonight, it whispers to us. Night falls over the great cathedral as evening settles upon Constantinople. The great dome darkens to a deep, calming blue. Lanterns ignite outside. The soft glow reflects against its walls. Chants from the last service drift out into the cool night air. Above the city, the stars shimmer faintly. The sea laps gently against the harbor, and Hagia Sophia stands in peaceful majesty, bathed in moonlight, a luminous guardian watching over 1,000 years of history yet to come. The golden age of Justinian. History often remembers emperors for their victories or defeats, for the borders they gained or the lands they lost. But here in Constantinople, during the reign of Justinian I, history is shaped not only by war and conquest, but by vision, resilience, and the quiet, unyielding determination of a man and a woman who sought to restore the empire to the greatness of its earlier days. Tonight, let us drift gently into the world of Justinian and Theodora, to figures whose partnerships will illuminate one of the most remarkable eras in Byzantine history. Let us walk slowly into their golden age. Before the crown, before the palace, Justinian was not born into imperial splendor. He came from a small village in the Balkan Hills, where shepherds tended their flocks under wide skies and nights were filled with the songs of villagers around simple fires. From childhood, he carried within him an uncommon hunger not for wealth, but for knowledge. He studied law, philosophy, theology, and the tangled workings of government. His mind, sharp and ceaselessly curious, rose quickly above his humble roots. His uncle, Justin, ascended the throne first, and when he grew too old to rule, he entrusted the empire to the young man he had mentored. Thus, Justinian became emperor not by lineage, but by brilliance. And by his side stood a woman equally extraordinary, the strength of Theodora. Theodora's early life was not one of privilege. She grew up in the world of entertainers and performers, a place where survival depended on courage and quick wit. But Theodora possessed something rare, a mind like polished steel and a heart that refused to bow. She traveled, learned, endured, grew wiser and stronger through every hardship. By the time she met Justinian, she had become a woman of grace, intelligence, and unshakable resolve. Justinian saw in her not only beauty, but brilliance. He broke tradition and law to marry her, and he raised her to the highest rank. Augusta, Empress of the Roman world. Together, they became a pair unlike any the empire had seen, balancing each other with intellect and heart, reason and intuition. Their partnership will soon be tested in ways the world will never forget. Restoring the empire. When Justinian looked outward at the lands that once formed Rome, he saw more than nostalgia. Asaududi Vandals ruled North Africa. Goths held Italy. Visigoths dominated Spain's shores, and the Western Roman Empire had collapsed into fragments. Justinian dreamed of reuniting these landsnots through reckless conquest, but through careful strategy. He saw himself not as a conqueror, but as a restorer. He leaned heavily on his greatest general, Belisarius, a man of discipline and quiet brilliance. The campaigns were long, sometimes harsh, but Justinian's resolve endured. The empire reclaimed North Africa, all of Italy, part of southern Spain. For a brief, shining moment, it seemed the Roman world had been stitched back together, a mosaic restored by deliberate, patient hands. But Justinian's golden age was not defined by war alone. Its true brilliance lay in the quieter achievements, those that shaped the daily lives of the people. The Corpus Juris Civilis, the code of justice. Justinian believed deeply in order, fairness, and clarity. The empire's legal system had become tangled through centuries of decrees, contradictions, and outdated laws. So Justinian did something extraordinary. He gathered the greatest legal minds of the empire and instructed them to rewrite, refine, and reorganize centuries of Roman law. The result was the Corpus Juris Civilis, the body of civil law. It became a foundation for justice, a guide for judges, a shield for the vulnerable, and the basis for European law for centuries to come. Imagine scholars working by lamplight, their quills whispering across parchment, sorting, debating, shaping a new order of justice. It was one of Justinian's greatest gifts to the world. The dark days, the Nika revolt, yet even golden ages have moments of shadow. In the year 532, a riot erupted in Constantinople. Small disputes between racing factions, the blues and the greens, unfolded into a massive uprising. The city burned, the palace trembled, and Justinian was urged to flee. Fear hung in the air like smoke. Advisors begged the emperor to escape across the sea. But when all seemed lost, Theodora stepped forward. Her voice was steady. Her eyes shone not with anger, but with unwavering resolve. "A throne is a noble burial shroud," she said. "I will not flee. If you wish to leave, you may, but I shall remain. Purple makes a fine shroud." Her words soft, fearless, pierced the haze of fear. They anchored Justinian. They changed the fate of the empire. With new courage, he acted decisively. The revolt was quelled. The city began to rebuild, and in the ashes of destruction, Justinian saw a new opportunity. Out of ashes, Rise of Hagia Sophia from the ruins of the revolt. Justinian ordered the creation of a cathedral so magnificent that the empire would forever find solace within its walls. This was Hagia Sophia, whose story we walked through in the last chapter. Its dome soared into the heavens, shimmering with golden light. It became the heart of Constantinople, its symbol, its refuge, its crown. For Justinian and Theodora, the cathedral was not merely architecture. It was a promise of renewal, a prayer written in stone, a declaration that from destruction, beauty can rise again. A city of learning and light, the Golden Age also brought flourishing culture. Libraries expanded scholars copied ancient Greek and Roman men, preserving knowledge that might otherwise have been lost to time. Schools and academies grew, philosophers debated ethics, theologians shaped doctrine, and scientists explored astronomy and mathematics. Artistic traditions thrived. Mosaic artists crafted scenes of shimmering glass and gold. Icon painters perfected their delicate, meditative craft. Architects experimented with arches, vaults, and marble in ways unseen before. Constantinople became a beacon of art and intellect-drawing minds from every corner of the empire. Challenges of plague and hardship, but even golden ages are tested by forces beyond human control. In 541, the plague of Justinian swept through the empire. Constantinople, once filled with lively streets and markets, fell silent under the weight of illness. Justinian himself grew sick, but survived. Theodora attended to the suffering with quiet dignity, sending aid, opening palace granaries, and ensuring no one was abandoned. Though the plague passed, it left behind a sorrowful memory. Yet the empire endured. Justinian endured, and their golden age continued, softened by hardship, but not broken. A legacy of light in their later years. Justinian and Theodora ruled with seasoned wisdom. Theodora passed first, leaving Justinian heartbroken yet steady in purpose. He lived on, devoting himself to law, theology, and governance, carrying her memory with him in every decision. When Justinian died in 565, the city mourned not only an emperor, but an era. Under his reign, law was reshaped. Lands were restored, architecture soared, culture flourished, and the empire rediscovered its identity. This was Byzantium's golden age, brilliant, resilient, and deeply human. Night over Justinian city. As we leave this chapter, imagine Constantinople at twilight during the height of Justinian's reign. The domes glow softly. Smoke curls from the chimneys of warm homes. The sound of gentle conversation rises from taverns. Lanterns flicker in the palace windows, and Hagia Sophia stands radiant, its dome a moonlit halo, above the quiet city. Justinian's dream is alive. Theodora's strength lingers like a blessing, and the empire breathes in deep, steady peace. The silk roads and trade winds, if one were to stand upon the high terraces of Constantinople and look outward beyond the city walls, beyond the rolling seas, beyond the distant lines of mountains, one would find roads that stretch farther than imagination. Some follow the edges of deserts, some carve through forests and steppes, and some wind across sunlit plains where caravans move like drifting shadows. These roads, together with the sea routes that fan across the Mediterranean and Black Sea, carry more than silk or spices. They carry stories. Tonight, we drift into the gentle rhythms of ancient trade, the lifeblood that allowed the Byzantine Empire to shine like a lantern in the long night of history. Let us walk slowly along the silk roads and sail peacefully upon the soft waves of the trade winds that shaped 1,000 years of Byzantine life. A city at the center of the world from its founding, Constantinople stood not merely as a capital, but as a crossroads. Its very location, perched between Europe and Asia, made it a natural meeting point for merchants, sailors, scholars, and travelers of every land. If Rome was the beating heart of the ancient world, then Constantinople became the steady breath of the medieval one. Ships glided into the Golden Horn from every direction. Sleek Greek triremes from the Aegean, merchant vessels from Egypt heavy with grain, Araby ships carrying spices and pearls, Black Sea traders bringing furs, wax, and honey, and great caravans arriving through the land gates, their camels adorned in bells and bright cloth. The city absorbed all of it: goods, cultures, stories, blending them into its own rich, vibrant tapestry. Yet even amid all this activity, there is a quiet harmony. Trade here does not roar. Eat, whom's. It does not rush. It flows like a gentle river. Caravans from the east, let us follow one such caravan as it approaches the empire. The journey begins thousands of miles away, near the distant lands of China, where silkworms spin their shimmering threads. Bundles of silk are loaded onto camels, protected carefully with cloth wrappings. The caravan winds through the deserts of Central Asia, the oases of Samarkand and Bukhara, the mountains of Persia, and the plains of Anatolia. Nights on the road are quiet and vast. The stars shine brilliantly over silent dunes. Winds carry the faint scent of dry earth and faraway rain. Caravan riders sit by small fires, telling stories of cities they will never see and empires they will never enter. Yet their precious cargo is destined for one place above all: Constantinople. When the caravan finally reaches the Golden Gate, the merchants breathe with relief. The journey has taken months, sometimes years, but now they are here. Hagia Sophia, a shining threshold. The weighing houses and custom offices, goods entering the city pass through carefully organized stations. Men wearing blue and white sashista, colors of imperial authority, inspect each bundle. Scales balance with quiet precision. Ledgers record the origins of silk, musk tea, cinnamon, jade, pearls, and countless other treasures. This process is not rushed. Clerks speak softly as they tally. Caravan leaders nod respectfully. Coins clink gently in exchange: gold solidi, silver miliaresia, copper follos. Through this quiet bureaucracy, the empire thrives. The market's filled with treasures now. Let us wander deeper into the city, where the markets welcome these goods into their bright embrace. The Macros embellows a long, covered market street filled with spice sellers, silk merchants, jewelers, and perfumers. Here, the air is warm, with the scent of cinnamon, saffron, rose, oil, and cloves. The Forum of Theodosius bustling, yet elegant, with merchants calling out prices in Arabic, Greek, Latin, Persian, and Armenian. Their voices blend into a soothing chant of commerce. The harbor markets of the Golden Horn tables shine with polished amber, carved ivory, brass lamps, and glass beads. Sailors trade stories as much as goods. The silk market behind the palace walls only authorized merchants may enter. Here, silk is unwound, inspected, dyed, and prepared for sale to nobles and foreign ambassadors. Silk merchants speak softly, their hands moving with delicate skill as they assess the weight and sheen of each bolt. One whispers, "This came from far in the east, near the edge of the world." Another replies, "And now it rests in the hands of Constantinople." It is here that the empire feels truly global, its markets echoing with the voices of continents, sailing the trade winds. Not all trade arrives. By land, the Mediterranean Sea, the Aegean, and the Black Sea serve as the empire's watery highways. Picture now a sturdy Byzantine merchant ship, its wooden hull warm under the afternoon sun. Its triangular lateen sails below, gently in the trade winds are constant. Soft force guiding the ship across calm waters. The sailors work with quiet efficiency. Ropes creak as they are tightened. The ship's bow cuts smoothly through the waves. Crates of olive oil and wine shift with muted thuds below deck. The sea around them sparkles. Dolphins occasionally rise alongside the ship, racing happily through the turquoise depths. Above, gulls circle lazily in the warm air. Sea travel can be dangerous in other eras, but in this chapter of Byzantine life, it is peaceful, rhythmic, a dance between breeze and tide. The ship sails toward Constantinople, where its goods will join the endless flow of trade that sustains the city as a vibrant pulse. Trade as cultural exchange. With goods come ideas. With merchants come stories. A Persian trader shares poetry with Greek scholars. An Armenian merchant describes distant mountain monasteries. An Egyptian sailor speaks of the endless Nile and the temples that line its banks. A traveler from India brings stories of spices, elephants, and rivers that shimmer like gold. These exchanges, soft, human, and unrecorded in official history, shape the empire just as much as laws or battles. In tea houses and taverns, languages blend. Philosopias mingle, art styles merge into new forms. Foods from distant lands find their way into Constantinople's kitchens. The city becomes a living mosaic of the world, a city guarded by the sea, The Byzantines know well the gift of their geography. The city rests upon a peninsula, protected by seas on two sides. The waters serve as both barrier and highway. Watchtowers rise along the coastline. Lookouts scan the horizons with calm vigilance, more curious than fearful. Caravels and merchant ships glide into the harbor in a steady, peaceful stream. Trade and safety intertwine here. As long as Constantinople stands, commerce thrives. As long as trade thrives, the city stands strong. The wealth of an empire. All this trade fills the empire with wealth not only in glittering coins, but in the more subtle currencies of stability and innovation. Taxes fill the treasury funds used to build churches, repair roads, support the poor, and strengthen the army. Merchants grow prosperous, families rise into new social ranks, guilds and associations protect their trades, artisans flourish, with exotic materials at their disposal. Mosaic artists, jewelers, and cloth dyers bring new wonders into existence. Knowledge circulates, books, scrolls, and scholars travel with caravans and ships, enriching Byzantine learning. Trade is not loud, it does not boast, but it's quiet. Constant presence is the true foundation of the empire's endurance. Evening at the harbor. As evening settles over Constantinople, the harbor glows with soft lantern light. Ships rock gently in place. Merchants finish their tallies. Crates are stacked neatly along wooden piers. Cats weave between baskets of fish. The air grows cool and fragrant with sea breeze. A caravan leader stands on the dock, gazing at the city's shimmering skyline. He has traveled thousands of miles, carrying silk across deserts and mountains. And now, standing here, he smiles, quietly, not because the journey is over, but because this city feels like the center of the world. Above him, the sky turns deep violet. The moon rises, casting a silver road across the water. Constantinople breathes calmly. The trade winds soften, and the silk roads fall into gentle, timeless rest. Monks, scholars, and artists. Every great empire has its soldiers, its rulers, and its merchants. But the soul of Byzantium rests not only in its walls or armies. It rests in quiet monasteries perched on lonely hills, in the whisper of quills sliding across parchment, and in the glow of gold mosaics illuminated by flickering lamplight. Tonight, let us wander gently into the intellectual heart of the Byzantine Empire, into the world of monks, scholars, and artists, a world where knowledge is cherished, beauty is prayer, and the pursuit of wisdom is a lifelong devotion. Settle in, dear traveler, and let the soft rhythm of this chapter guide you toward calm reflection. The quiet world of monasteries. Far from the bustling streets of Constantinople, scattered across mountains, forests, and islands, lie the monasteries of Byzantium, places of serenity and stillness. Imagine approaching one such monastery at dawn. The air is crisp and cool. A faint mist clings to the stone walls. The only sound comes from birds greeting the morning sun. The monastery stands modestly, built of pale stone and topped with red tiles weathered by centuries. Cypress trees line the path leading to its humble gate. A monk in a dark robe, hood drawn gently over his brow, welcomes travelers with a silent nod. Inside, life follows a gentle rhythm. Prayers whispered at sunrise, work in the gardens or workshops during the day. Study of sacred texts in quiet chambers, and soft hymns echoing through the chapel at dusk. Here, time seems to move differently, measured not by hours, but by devotion. Monks copy manuscripts, tend to ill villagers, craft simple tools, and meditate on the mysteries of creation. Their lives are peaceful, humble, and yet vital to the preservation of knowledge. This scriptorium, heart of preservation. Let us step inside the scriptorium, where monks devote their lives to the written word. A long wooden table stretches across the room. Windows let in shafts of soft light that fall upon scrolls and ink. The scent of parchment, beeswax, and ink hangs gently in the air. A monk sits hunched over a manuscript, his quill moving in slow, deliberate strokes. Each letter is shaped with care, each page crafted like a small work of art. In this room, the wisdom of centuries is preserved. What do they copy? Classical texts from Homer, Plato, Aristotle, medical treatises by Galen and Hippocrates. Christian writings of early saints, histories of ancient kingdoms, scientific observations from distant lands. Without these monks, much of ancient knowledge would have faded into time's long shadows. But here, it lives reborn in ink, preserved for generations yet unborn. Sometimes, the monk pauses and rests his hand, gazing out the window at the quiet world beyond. The peace of the monastery settles over him like a warm cloak. Then he returns to his work, steady and calm, his quill whispering once more. Scholars of Constantinople, guardians of wisdom, the empire's intellectual light does not glow only in mud. Within Constantinople itself lies a vibrant community of scholars, men and women devoted to philosophy, law, theology, astronomy, mathematics, and history. Let us wander now through the University of Constantinople, established under the wise inside its halls. Scholars debate the nature of the universe. Students study ancient Greek logic. Teachers recite passages from memory, and corridors echo with the calm murmur of discovery. Professors in flowing robes stroll beneath colonnades, carrying scrolls tucked beneath their arms. Some discuss the works of Aristotle. Others speak of newly translated texts from Persia or India. Knowledge flows freely, like a river winding through the empire. One scholar, an elderly man with gentle eye, stands before a small group of students. He speaks not loudly, but with soft, thoughtful cadence. Wisdom, he says, is not merely knowing the world, but understanding one's place within it. The students listen in stillness, absorbing each word. The artistry of faith. Icons and mosaics. Byzantine art is unlike the art of other lands. It is not meant to imitate the world, but to illuminate the divine. Let us now step into the workshop of an icon painter. The room is small, filled with the scent of linseed oil and pine. Sunlight spills in through a narrow window, striking countless jars of pigments, deep blues made from lapis lazuli, rich reds from ground cinnabar, shimmering gold leaf resting on fine parchment. An iconographer sits with a panel of wood resting on his lap. He begins with prayer. His brush moves slowly, reverently. The image is not a portrait, but a reflection of spiritual truth. Face is calm and elongated, eyes wide with compassion, halos radiating golden light. Each stroke is meditation, each color chosen not for beauty alone, but for symbolism. Icons are windows, soft openings into the sacred. Mosaics, too, adorn the empire. Let us step into a half-finished chapel. Workers climb scaffolding, placing tiny tesserae, small cubes of glass and stone into the walls. Shimmering gold pieces catch the light, filling the room with quiet brilliance. Slowly, patient hands form images of angels, saints, and holy scenes. When finished, the mosaics will glow like constellations across the walls. These works of art are prayers made visible. Music of the empire. Chants of stillness. The Byzantine Empire does not merely speak through stone and ink, it sings. Imagine entering a cathedral at dusk. Candles flicker in gentle rows. Incense drifts in fragrant curves. Suddenly, a choir begins to chant. Their voices rise slowly, blending into a single, flowing sound. Deep, resonant, timeless. There are no instruments, only the purity of human voices filling the vast space. Each note seems to float upward, toward the dome, settling softly among the mosaics. Byzantine chant is not meant to excite the senses. It is meant to quiet the heart, to draw listeners inward, toward silence, contemplation, and peace. Even today, its echoes remain a gentle reminder of the empire's devotion. Libraries, sanctuaries of knowledge. Let us now step into a library. One of the empire's hidden sanctuaries. Shelves carved from dark wood reach toward the ceiling. Scrolls and codices line the walls, each tied with ribbons or tucked into leather coverings. The air smells faintly of parchment and time. A scholar moves slowly through the aisles, carrying a lantern. He reads by its soft, golden glow, turning pages with quiet reverence. Books held here come from Alexandria, Athens, Antioch, Persia, Syria, and even distant China. Knowledge flows freely into Constantinople, like water drawn to the center of a great lake. Here, ancient stories sleep patiently, waiting for readers to awaken them. The artistic life of ordinary people. Art is not confined to palaces or churches. It lives in the homes of ordinary citizens. Women weave patterned fabrics on wooden looms. Men carve small charms to hang above doorways for protection. Children paint simple designs on pottery stars, birds, flowers. In taverns, musicians play the lyre in Pandora, while storytellers recount legends of heroes, emperors, and saints. Art fills the city like soft music, drifting through the streets. A culture preserved through time. What makes the Byzantine Empire unique is not only its wealth or its longevity. It is the way it guards culture like a sacred flame. Monks preserve ancient texts. Scholars refine ideas. Artists reveal beauty. Musicians shape spiritual silence. Libraries protect memory. While much of Europe falls into turmoil, Byzantium remains a sanctuary of learning gone, illuminated island in the dark waters of uncertainty. Without the empire's devotion to preservation, many treasures of ancient wisdom might have been lost forever. Night over the monasteries and schools as night settles across the empire. The world of monks, scholars, and artists grows even quieter. In monasteries, candles glow softly in narrow windows. A monk completes his final prayers before resting. His unfinished manuscript lies peacefully beside him. In Constantinople, a scholar closes a codex and steps onto a balcony. The city lights shimmer below, mirroring the stars above. In a small workshop, an artist lays down his brush. His latest icon gleams softly in lamplight. He whispers a prayer of gratitude for the gift of creation. Across the empire, silence falls gently. Knowledge is safe. Beauty endures, and the breath of wisdom fills the quiet night. Daily life in the market, harbor, and palace morning arrives slowly in Constantinople, slipping over the tiled rooftops like a soft golden veil. The first light touches the domes and mosaics, brushes the tall columns with warmth, and settles gently over the wide streets. The city does not leap into action. It stretches awake, breathing calmly as though it has all the time in the world. Today, as on countless days before, life flows through its markets, harbors, and palace corridors with the unhurried rhythm of a civilization confident in its place beneath the sun. Along the Mazy, small shops began to open with quiet familiarity. A baker pushes open his wooden shutters, letting the comforting scent of warm bread drift across the street. A pair of young boys carry baskets of figs and pomegranates, arranging them carefully on display before their father steps out to greet the first customers. A silk merchant unfolds shimmering bolts of cloth dyed in sapphire, crimson, and rose gold, each one catching the morning light as though woven from the sky itself. Nearby, a potter lifts his clay pots from shelves with hands that have shaped vessels for decades, each finger movement slow and practiced, born of years of peaceful repetition. Most remarkable is not the variety of goods, but the calm energy that fills the market. People speak softly, trading not only items but stories, news from Antioch, rumors from distant Persia, tales from caravan riders who spent long nights beneath unfamiliar stars. A young woman buys olive oil while exchanging warm greetings with her neighbors. A group of older men sit beneath a shaded portico, playing a board game. The clack of pieces upon what a steady, soothing sound. Life here is not a rush, but a steady, gentle tide. As we drift deeper into the heart of the market, the sounds become a soft symphony of everyday human warmth. A coppersmith taps gently at a small bowl, creating a crisp, rhythmic reen. A herbalist arranges bundles of lavender, mint, and thyme, their combined fragrance calming even the busiest traffic. A storyteller, sitting upon a carpet, entertains a circle of children with tales of heroic emperors, magical gardens, and ships that once sailed past the edges of the known world. The children listen with wide eyes and open hearts, imagining themselves walking through ancient legends. Every corner of Constantinople seems filled with little sparks of wonder. As the sun rises higher, we make our way toward the harbor, where the city meets the restless yet familiar embrace of the sea. The golden horn curves gently like a protective arm, cradling ships that sway in the shimmering waters. The harbor is awake now, but like the market, it moves with calm precision. Sailors call out instructions to one another, but their voices carry the warmth of routine rather than urgency. Ropes are pulled, crates are lowered, and small groups of dockworkers unload amphorae filled with wine, olive oil, and grain. The sea breeze brings with it the fresh scent of salt and distant winds. Seabirds wheel overhead, their calls blending with the soft groan of wood and rope. A merchant from the Black Sea region stepped onto the dock, his weary face relaxing as he looks toward the bustling city that promises rest and prosperity. Another trader stands by his cargo, a mound of furs, honey, and wax, speaking quietly with a local official who records each item in a neat ledger. No one hurries, and no one waits impatiently. Time at the harbor flows like tide water, unhurried and eternal. Children run along the pier, watching the sailors mend nets or telling each other stories of sea monsters rumored to live in the deep. A fisherman sits at the edge of the dock, legs dangling lazily, checking the knots in his net while humming a soothing tune. Beyond him, small boats drift in and out of the harbor, their sails catching the sunlight in elegant curves. The harbor is alive, but peacefully so, a place where commerce and gentle daily life blend into a tranquil harmony. From the harbor, the path rises slowly toward the grandeur of the imperial district. Here, behind embellished gates and towering walls, the great palace of Constantinople stretches across terraces like a vast mosaic of architecture, art, and memory. Yet even within these walls of power, there is an unexpected serenity. The palace may house emperors, senators, generals, and courtiers, but its atmosphere is carried by the soft whisper of silk robes, the gentle echo of footsteps along marble corridors, and the tranquil murmur of courtiers engaged in quiet discussion. We wander into one of the palace courtyards, where a fountain bubbles steadily beneath the shade of tall cypress trees. Pages and scribes hurry about, though their movements feel more like gliding than rushing. They carry scrolls, messages, and tablets from one hall to another, their sandals tapping lightly upon the mosaic floors. An elderly official sits beneath an archway reviewing documents, his expression calm and thoughtful. Nearby, a group of palace attendants carry trays of warm bread, dates, and honey, preparing a simple morning meal for the imperial household. Sunlight pours into the palace gardens, illuminating pathways lined with roses, lilies, and laurel. The flowers sway with the gentle breeze that rolls in from the sea, carrying faint traces of incense from nearby chapels. Gazing across this landscape, it becomes clear that Constantinople is not merely a place of power, it is a sanctuary, built as much for the spirit as for the state. From one balcony, a view opens across the entire city, the domes of churches rising like islands of light, the bustling threads of the market stretching out beneath them, the harbor shimmering like a silver mirror. Far below, the streets wind through neighborhoods filled with children, artisans, mothers preparing meals, scholars deep in thought, and travelers simply grateful to rest within the safety of the city's embrace. Life here is not extravagant, is harmonious. Inside one of the palace halls, mosaic artists continue their work with quiet devotion. Their fingertips place small pieces of colored glass into patterns that will outlast centuries. A golden tessera is pressed carefully into wet plaster. Another blue piece nestles beside it, forming the wing of an angel or the curve of a robe. Nearby, palace musicians rehearse in soft tones, tuning lyres and flutes for the evening's gentle entertainment. Their music floats through the corridors like drifting perfume, adding a sense of dreamlike warmth to the already serene setting. Even the empress' presence does not break this calm. Justinian or whichever ruler holds court at the time moves through the palace with measured dignity, accompanied by advisors who speak with soft clarity. Decisions are made not in haste, but in contemplation, reflecting the empire's dedication to stability and endurance. In a corner chamber, legal scholars consult ancient manuscripts, shaping laws with deliberate wisdom. In another, ambassadors wait quietly, prepared to discuss matters of trade or peace with respectful diplomacy. As afternoon settles peacefully over the city, Constantinople's rhythms slow once more. Markets wind down. Fishermen return to their homes. Courtiers retreat to their chambers, and lanterns began to glow along the palace walls and streets, like gentle constellations brought down to earth. The air grows soft and cool. The sounds of the day fade into the hush of evening. From the palace garden, one last glance at the city reveals its true nature. A place where daily life is woven not of noise or chaos, but of small acts of devotion, craftsmanship, and community. A city whose strength lies not only in its walls and wealth, but in the everyday people who move through its streets with quiet confidence. The markets, the harbor, the palace, each one a thread in the vast, calm tapestry of Byzantine life. And as night settles, Constantinople glows softly beneath the starlit sky, breathing in perfect harmony with the world around it. Enemies at the gate, smooth narrative approx. 1,300 words for all its shimmering beauty, its bustling markets, its serene monasteries, and its palaces humming quietly with purpose. Constantinople has always lived with one constant truth. Others coveted it, its harbors, its wealth, its knowledge. Its walls of gleaming stone all drew the gaze of distant empires and ambitious kings. And so, for more than 1,000 years, the city of Constantine lived with the gentle but persistent awareness that beyond its horizons, somewhere, someone was preparing to test its strength. Yet even this ever-present shadow could not dim the city's steady, unbroken calm. If you walk along the mighty Theodosian walls at sunrise, you can feel that quiet resilience. The stone stretches far into the distance, warm beneath the early light. Birds nest peacefully within its towers. A cool breeze travels along its battlements, whispering stories of centuries past. The city below still sleeps, yet here, on the heights, a lone guard stands watch, his posture relaxed, his gaze sweeping knowingly across the plains. He is part of a tradition older than himself, older than his father, older even than the walls beneath his feet. And as he watches the horizon, he feels no fear. He knows the strength of the city. He knows its walls have faced countless storms. Constantinople's enemies came in many forms, Persians from the east of Ars, and Slavs from the north, Arabs, sweeping across deserts, Bulgars emerging from the forests, Crusaders marching under the banners of the cross, and finally the Ottomans, with their cannons and their determination. Yet none of these threats came upon the city in sudden panic or disorder. They approached like distant thunder, rolling softly at first, growing in presence, but always met with the same calm preparedness that had defined the city from its earliest days. Imagine an emperor standing before his advisors, whether it be Heraclius Basil II, or any ruler of this long-enduring empire. Their meetings do not resemble frantic war councils. Instead, the palace hall is quiet, filled with the scent of incense and the glow of morning sun reflecting off polished marble. Generals speak with measured voices. Maps are unrolled gently across tables. Courtiers, scribes, and theologians stand by, each contributing with a sense of solemn purpose. They rarely speak of conquest. They speak of preservation, of guarding the life of the city and the people who depend upon its safety. Even in times of threat, Constantinople remains a place of rhythm and order. Markets stay open, fishermen mend their nets, scholars continue their studies, unfazed by distant rumors. Children chase each other through narrow alleyways, unaware that beyond the walls, armies are stirring. The empire, after all, has weathered such storms before. Threats come and go like seasons, but the city endures. Always, it endures. Picture now a caravan arriving at the gates, dusty from travel. News spreads that an army is marching from the east. Perhaps Persian forces during ancient conflicts, or later, Arab warriors seeking to test the empire's borders. The merchants speak softly among themselves, wondering what lies ahead. But as they enter the city, they are greeted not with panic, but with the familiar order of Constantinople. Merchants calling out their daily prices, monks chanting prayers inside chapels, guards standing at their posts with practiced calm. The contrast is striking. Beyond the walls, tension rises. Inside, life flows on. Many invaders underestimated the city, believing it could be taken by force of numbers or intimidation alone. But the walls stood like mountains shaped by human hands. Triple layers of stone, towers rising at regular intervals, a moat glistening in the sunlight, and always the quiet, confident knowledge that these defenses had protected the city against some of the greatest armies the world had known. In the 7th century, for example, Arab forces laid siege to Constantinople. Their fleets surrounded the city. Their camps stretched across the plains. Their banners fluttered in the warm breeze, yet inside the walls, people continued their daily routines beneath the protection of something whispered about in wonder. Greek fire, a secret weapon, mysterious and fearsome, capable of clinging to water and bursting into flames. When the moment came, Byzantine ships, their prows carved and their crews steady, rowed boldly toward the enemy, releasing streams of fire that danced across the sea like serpents of light. The invaders fell back, shaken by the spectacle, and the city breathed again, untouched. Centuries later, in the 9th and 10th centuries, the Bulgars approached with their powerful cavalry. They tested the strength of the empire, time and time again. But each time Byzantine, diplomacy subtle, patient, and often brilliant sought peace, where others sought violence. Gifts were sent. Negotiators traveled across borders with messages of goodwill. Treaties were signed with quiet ceremony. Only rarely did the empire need to draw its sword. Its greatest strength was not always in the battlefield, but in wisdom and restraint. Even the Crusaders came not as enemies initially, but as allies who lost their way. When they arrived in the city, dazzled by its wealth, its mosaics, its towering buildings, their awe quickly turned to envy. And envy, in moments of weakness, can become catastrophe. The Fourth Crusade looms heavily in memory, yet even then, the city's spirit remained unbroken. Fires burned. Churches were looted. The empire fractured. But Constantinople endured in exile, waiting patiently across the sea in Nicaea, gathering its strength like a lamp shielded from wind, until it could rise once more and reclaim its throne. And then, at last, there were the Ottomans. Strong, determined, tireless. Their armies advanced slowly over decades, testing, probing, learning. They admired the city they sought to conquer. They studied its walls. They respected its endurance. And as they approached in the 15th century, Constantinople, though weakened, still held its head high. Inside, priests prayed quietly. Citizens gathered in small groups, sharing memories of better days. Soldiers walked the battlements with dignity, knowing they faced overwhelming odds. There was fear, yes, but also pride. For the city had stood for more than 1,000 years. Whatever came next, it had fulfilled its destiny. In those final days, the city did not rage. It did not crumble in chaos. It descended into a graceful twilight. Lanterns glowed in windows. Hymns filled Hagia Sophia as voices rose in calm defiance of fate. The emperor, lost of his line, walked among his people with the humility of a shepherd and the courage of a warrior. And though the walls would eventually fall, the idea of Constantinople, its light, its culture, its wisdom did not. For even as enemies stood at the gate, the city's true strength lay not in stone or steel, but in its heart, in its scholars, its monks, its artists, its merchants, and the people who lived their lives in quiet harmony, confident that they belonged to something greater than any single moment in history. Night returns to our imagined city once more. The walls stand silent beneath the stars. Torches flicker along the battlements. Guards move with practiced ease. And beyond the horizon, the world shifts and changes, but Constantinople remains, serene in the knowledge of its long, magnificent journey. Even surrounded by threats, it breathes peacefully, as though whispering into the night. I have endured. I continue. Still, the Komnenian Renaissance. There are moments in the life of an empire when after long years of uncertainty a gentle brightness returns. Quiet at first, like the pale glow before dawn, and then clearer, stronger, warming the streets, the people, and the spirit of the land. For Byzantium, such a moment came with the rise of the Komnenoi, a family whose name would become woven gently into the tapestry of the empire's revival. And tonight, as we continue drifting through the centuries of Constantinople's story, we step into this age of renewal, a time when hope was not shouted but breathed softly back into the world. To understand this renaissance, Imagine first the city before its arrival, weary from invasions, shaken by internal struggles, battered by the ambitions of rivals, both near and far. The empire had survived siege after siege, and though the heart of Constantinople still beat strong, its borders had shrunk, its coffers had thinned, and its people had grown accustomed to caution. Yet even in this diminished state, the empire refused to surrender its identity. Within its walls, scholars still debated, merchants still traded, monks still prayed, and artists still shaped beauty with patient hands. The embers of Byzantium still glowed, waiting for the right breath of wind to flare gently back to life. That breath arrived in the form of an emperor named Alexius Komnenian. When he stepped onto the throne in the year 1081, he inherited an empire trembling under the weight of troubles. Enemies pressed from east and west. The treasury was nearly empty, and long years of turmoil had left people uncertain of what the future might hold. But Alexios carried within him a calm determination. He knew the empire's strengths, understood its wounds, and trusted deeply in its ability to rise once more. The early years of his reign were filled with careful decisions and subtle diplomacy. Alexios forged alliances where none seemed possible. He reorganized the army, not with the heavy hand of desperation, but with the careful touch of a healer tending to an old injury. He brought talented generals and wise advisors to his side, building a circle of loyalty and purpose. And slowly, like a broken vessel being mended with golden lines, the empire began to regain its shape. As stability returned, Constantinople felt its spirit brighten. Markets grew lively again. The harbor once more filled with ships whose sails fluttered in the breeze like white wings. Roads, long neglected, were repaired. Monasteries welcomed new novices eager to devote their lives to study and prayer. The city, so often defined by its endurance, now rediscovered its ability to flourish. Alexios himself was a ruler of exceptional energy, yet always carrying the demeanor of a thoughtful guardian rather than a conquering warrior. His wife, Irene Duquesna, played a vital role beside him. Gentle in presence but strong in wisdom, she became a quiet pillar of the Komnenian court, offering calm counsel in times of uncertainty. Their partnership echoed the harmony of Justinian and Theodora's centuries before, though shaped by the different challenges of a later age. From this stability blossomed something even more precious, a cultural and intellectual flowering that would mark the Komnenian Renaissance as one of Byzantium's most luminous periods. Scholars gathered once more in the city, drawn by the promise of safety and patronage. Philosophers debated the nature of the soul. Mathematicians refined ancient theories. Physicians studied the works of Galen and Hippocrates with renewed dedication. Literature stirred with fresh inspiration, and new chronicles were written, detailing both the turmoil the empire had survived and the hope it now embraced. Among the brightest figures of this age was Alexius's own daughter, Anna Komnenian. Raised within the palace, educated by some of the finest minds in the empire, Anna possessed a remarkable intellect and a deep love of learning. She wrote the Alexiad, a sweeping history of her father's reign, filled with vivid detail, tender admiration, and the clear voice of a scholar who understood the weight of legacy. Through her eyes we glimpsed the world of the common not only the battles and politics, but the humanity, the aspirations, and the quiet dignity of a family striving to restore their beloved empire. In her writing, Anna describes the court not as a place of empty grandeur, but as a hub of intellectual exchange. She speaks of discussions that stretched late into the night, where scholars and nobles alike shared ideas over lamps that flickered against walls, decorated with mosaics and tapestries. She writes of her father with affection, of his fluctuating fortunes, of the loyalty he inspired, and of the world he fought to protect. Her words preserve not just history, but emotion and intimate glimpse of Byzantium's heart. Meanwhile, the arts flourished like spring blossoms after a long winter. Icon painters returned to their workshops, dipping brushes into pigments of deep blue and shimmering gold. Mosaic artisans climbed their scaffolds with renewed spirits, building images of saints, emperors, and heavenly visions that glowed softly in lamplight. Architects and builders restored churches that had fallen into disrepair, adding elegant arches, slender columns, and finely carved capitals that felt like prayers shaped in stone. Even the city's atmosphere changed. Travelers from the west, arriving in Constantinople, spoke of its beauty with an awed hush, marveling at its shimmering domes, its lively streets, its fountains and gardens. Merchants found the markets welcoming again. Monks journeyed from distant monasteries to exchange manuscripts and teachings. Diplomats noted the renewed stability and elegance of the court, where ceremony was conducted with quiet precision and grace. The Komnenian emperors who followed Alexios' son, John, and later his grandson Manuel continued his work with differing styles but shared devotion. John ruled with humility and piety, often described as gentle and introspective, a shepherd emperor whose heart lay with his people. Manuel, bold and charismatic, welcomed ambassadors and knights from distant lands, creating a court renowned for its splendor, its tournaments, and its rich cultural life. Under each ruler, the city glowed with a different kind of light, but always with beauty, purpose, and renewal. Yet even in this renaissance, Byzantium remained ever aware of the shifting world around it. It maintained its diplomacy, its watchfulness, its wisdom. The city understood, as it always had, that prosperity must be balanced with vigilance. But this awareness did not overshadow its joy. Instead, it enriched its appreciation for the moment, for this brief, shining period when the empire rediscovered itself, not through conquest, but through culture, learning, and faith. As evening settles gently over Constantinople during this era, the city glows with quiet brilliance. Lanterns rise like small suns along the Mazy. The harbor reflects the soft shimmer of moonlight on the water. In the palace, Anna Komnene writes by candlelight, her quill whispering across parchment as she records the story of her father's reign. Scholars converse beneath colonnades, cooled by the evening breeze. Monks chant prayers within chapels, where gold mosaics catch the last warm rays of the sun. And above it all, the great dome of Hagia Sophia glows faintly in the twilight, like a guardian watching over an empire that has learned to hope again. This was the Komnenian Renaissance, gentle, wise, and luminous. A time when Byzantium, strengthened by resilience, found beauty again in knowledge, culture, and quiet determination. A time when the city did not merely endure. It blossa. Math. The long twilight of Byzantium. Twilight does not arrive all at once. It drifts in slowly, softening the edges of day, turning bright colors into gentle hues, and laying a quiet hand upon the world. So too was the long twilight of the Byzantine Empire, a fading not of sudden darkness, but of gradual dimming, filled with moments of beauty, dignity, and resilience. Even as its territories shrank and challenges pressed upon it, the empire carried itself with a quiet grace, never shedding the centuries of wisdom that defined its character. Imagine Constantinople at the beginning of its twilight, still proud, still radiant, but bearing the marks of time like an aging monarch whose crown rests a little heavier than before. The domes remain bright under the sun, the markets still hum with life, and the scent of bread and incense lingers in the air. Yet subtle changes whisper through the city. Streets, once crowded with foreign merchants, now feel more spacious. Embassies that once arrive with lavish gifts now bring restrained greetings. Scholars write treatises, not of renewal, but of remembrance. Even the sea winds seem to carry quiet stories of lands lost to rising powers. Still, the heart of Constantinople beats steadily. The people go about their days with calm dignity, bakers kneading dough with steady hands, fishermen mending nets along the harbor, children chasing each other between narrow alleys as laughter curls above the stones. The empire, though smaller, retains its spirit, its beauty, and the serene rhythm of a civilization accustomed to weathering storms. There were rulers during this long twilight who shone brightly in the fading light, wise emperors who cherished not conquest, but preservation. They moved through the palace halls like caretakers of an ancient library, tending to the city with reverence. They patched walls, renegotiated alliances, encouraged trade, and sought peace wherever it could be found. Their efforts slowed the twilight, allowing the empire to savor each remaining moment with quiet pride. Yet beyond the walls, the world was changing. New powers rose like young stars on the horizon, strong, ambitious, and eager to shape the future. The Seljuk Turks expanded into Anatolia, a region that had long been the empire's heartland. Venetian merchants gained influence in the Mediterranean, and their ships glided across the waves with growing confidence. The Crusaders, once welcomed as allies, drifted into unpredictable currents, bringing both hope and harm in equal measure. Each shift in the wider world cast long shadows upon Byzantium. The Fourth Crusade, perhaps the darkest of these shadows, struck the city not with noble purpose, but with longing for its wealth. In 1204, knights driven by misplaced ambition breached the walls, and Constantinople, prepared for betrayal, fell to an army that claimed to come in the name of dreams it scarcely understood. Fires lit the night. Treasures vanished. Churches that had glowed with mosaics for centuries now echoed with the heavy silence of loss. And yet, even then, the city's light did not fully extinguish. Refugees, scholars, nobles, and loyal citizens fled to Nicaea across the sea, carrying with them the fragile flame of the empire's soul. For nearly 60 years, they tended that flame in exile. They rebuilt government, nurtured culture, and preserved the memory of the city they longed to reclaim. And in 1261, the dream was realized. Constantinople, weary but standing, opened its gates once more to its rightful rulers. The empire was restored not in its former glory, but in a quieter, more reflective state, like an old oak tree still magnificent, though its branches have thinned with age. The restored empire breathed with gentle caution. Its rulers walked to palace halls with reverence for a city reborn from ashes. Monks resumed their chants inside Hagia Sophia, their voices carrying gratitude for survival. Children once again played in the squares, and merchants returned to the harbors with guarded optimism. The city had suffered, but it lived. And in its resilience, it found a new kind of strength rooted in memory, wisdom, and faith. Yet twilight continued to deepen. The Ottomans, rising steadily across Anatolia and the Balkans, grew in power with each passing decade. Their armies were disciplined, their leaders were determined, and their gaze settled upon Constantinople with both admiration and inevitability. The city, magnificent but isolated, could feel the slow tightening of the world around it. Still, life inside its walls flowed with familiar rhythms. The mazes still echoed with soft footsteps. Bakers still filled the air with the scent of warm loaves. Lanterns still glimmered in windows at dusk. The city faced its destiny not with fear, but with acceptance. In the final decades, the emperors walked the palace grounds with a humility unknown to their predecessors. They understood that the empire they guarded was now more memory than might, more soul than sword, and so they focused their hearts on preserving what made Byzantium unique: its learning, its art, its devotion. Scholars continued to write, preserving ancient knowledge that would later inspire the Renaissance in distant lands. Artists painted icons with steady hands, capturing beauty even as the world around them grew dim. Priests tended lamps in chapels, filling the city with soft prayers. When the final siege arrived in 1453, the city met it with quiet resolve. Constantinople's defenders, soldiers, craftsmen, monks, and citizens stood upon the walls, not because they expected victory, but because they wished to honor the centuries of history beneath their feet. The last emperor, Constantine Once, moved among them with gentle words and calm presence. He was a ruler, yes, but in those moments, he was also a companion, a brother, a man standing with his people in the face of the inevitable. Inside Hagia Sophia, candles glowed softly as priests led their final service. Men and women from every corner of the city gathered beneath the great dome. Their voices rose together: Greeks, Romans, merchants, soldiers, nobles, and common folk blending into a single, harmonious prayer that filled the vast space with warmth. Outside, the night pressed heavily against the windows, but inside, the cathedral shimmered like a sanctuary beyond time, and so the city fell not in disgrace, but in dignity. Its twilight finally deepened into night, but even as the empire faded, its legacy did not. The knowledge preserved in Byzantine libraries would nourish Europe's rebirth. Its art would shape iconography for centuries. Its scholars would carry the embers of ancient wisdom into new lands. Its spirit, woven from the threads of endurance, culture, and faith, would continue to glow in the stories of generations. If you wander through modern Istanbul and stand before the ancient walls or beneath the dome of Hagia Sophia, you can still feel that quiet endurance. You can feel the heartbeat of a city that lived for more than 1,000 years, surviving storms, celebrating triumphs, and greeting its twilight with grace. Byzantium may have vanished from the maps, but its light never truly went out. It lingers in architecture, in memory, in the gentle hush of history whispered across oceans of time. And as night falls over our story, Constantinople rests eternal in spirit, glowing softly in the memories of those who walk the corridors of history with reverence. The empire may have ended, but the heart of Byzantium still whispers, patient and enduring. I have lived, Primera, Abeshon, and I remain. And so, dear friend, our quiet journey through 1,000 years comes to its gentle close. We have walked beside emperors and artisans, watched lanterns glow in ancient markets, felt sea breezes whisper against the great walls, and stood beneath the dome of Hagia Sophia's prayers drifted upward like soft threads of light. Thank you for sharing this peaceful night with me. Your presence here means more than you know. If this story soothed your mind or helped you drift toward sleep, feel free to like, subscribe, and return anytime you wish for another calming journey through history. Now rest easy, wanderer of the past. Allow the soft music to carry you into a deeper stillness, and may your dreams be as gentle as the moonlit waters of Constantinople. Good night, and sleep well.